So they always tell them to go. The 205 unsafe because it's no 205 second going on. We don't have the post office years now. So we run.
You got a mailbox.
Yeah, we got clusters.
Yeah.
We got Laverne address and not going phone number.
Does it ever come to your place where right Irvington?
Yeah, yeah.
It does?
Just people, but Irvington, 50560 becomes.
Oh, darn.
I've even gotten letters that say, my address with, I don't know how them make it.
Yeah, and then we send out drainage notices and nobody gets them. So they must have all got lost in the mail.
So,
Morning.
Bill Lefferts, I see one.
Still limping. I had Achilles surgery 12 weeks ago. I'm in a shoe, so I can't complain.
You can, we'll listen.
You must have made some progress for that.
Yeah.
Didn't kick your husband so hard.
You should talk back.
You must know from experience.
Oh, yeah.
Several people tell me that.
I've had a broken tailbone.
Yeah,
Well, it wasn't my wife, it was a cow.
I don't.
Yeah.
About your wife.
She can't kick that high. I wouldn't recommend that.
I'm sure that's not fun.
The one horse, he told me that he was watching it here, and he said, "You come from the southwest, because we get ready to go middleweight, as soon as it hits that line, a lot of times they just won't freeze." And I gotta work. And it's also, you get firing, it's you look at you, look at the line out. Yes. Good morning.
Morning, Czar.
I got. We got four tents.
Well, we got the.
Big dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Two big dogs.
Morning, Kurt.
Good.
See a picture in something the other day. Yeah, was it the Elbow paper?
Probably.
I think so.
What's that?
So.
But I just gave my wife. Feeling Heather.
Do that.
Yeah. So they're gonna go feed my.
Three on that plant.
Something like that.
So we did get that 3 inch of rain. That right out there doing this. So. It's for the free on them. I should put, Liberty on my feet. And we'll come back in a few weeks, if we come back again, and then we'll just spray her. She's saying that. That's 2 days. I did.
How are you today? Starting to feel good today.
This thing's nice.
Okay, well, I seen it after quitting, so please respond back and like, sorry, it's after quit time.
World treating you good?
I did see.
Yes.
Good.
But you,
Yeah, no complaints.
nobody wants to be something they were in.
You know.
Yeah.
It's summertime, life's easy.
I don't know if it's easy, it's complicated, it's not
Well, it's busy,
busy.
yeah.
It's-
If the mail would go through like it's supposed to and wouldn't get chewed out for not getting reports, it'd have been better this week, but.
You get yelled at for something.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be right if we didn't get chewed out by somebody.
Since we got 2 minutes left.
See, they're still keeping you busy at the hospital.
We've been quite busy. Good problem,
Yep.
I guess. Here, the caregiving side, the receiving side, it's good that we're here. Yeah, that's what.
You can go. Oh my goodness, man.
You come nice and early, Tyler.
What's that?
You come nice and early.
I'm
I'll get these jobs off and then go, kill the rest time and come back at 10 o'clock.
You can drop them off now.
Basically revised copies of the commissioner reports,
Good.
presenting them kind of as a.
Are they all the same?
They're all
Yeah, yeah, they're just 3 copies of.
You guys want to
of
look
this
at
thing,
it?
a couple for the records and whoever would like to see, it. Changes that were accepted last week. Really, I just see this as accountability that it actually got done. So
Throw one in the margin.
I will.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
See you a little later.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It is 8 o'clock. Let's stand and do the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public discussion. Anybody here for public discussion?
Nancy Erickson. And I would just like to say there are a lot of people in support of the pipeline ordinance, but we can't be here at a 9 a.m. Even a lot of my own can't be here. I'm here on their behalf.
Thank you, Nancy.
Public discussion.
Yep.
I can discuss that drainage decision that was made last Tuesday.
Yep.
Is that final?
Yes,
On the engineer that did what was the cost of that engineer for his share?
I don't have the
Don't
report
have
in
it.
front of me.
I don't
Somebody should
think
know.
that's in here.
That's not in there.
It wouldn't be in here. It would be in the bills we've had over time, but I don't know that that's been added up.
And at the time, it was supposed to be 70-30, which I think the whole public was assuming that was gonna be. And Kyle made a motion for 85 on the Goshi part, which I didn't think was fair and ethical. But is Skylar here? No.
No.
He just-
Here.
He just
Why?
left.
He just left. On his report. Yeah, I was on the school board for 20 years, so I kind of know what's going on, but. On his report, it was highly recommended to recommend that to the supervisors, and it was just kind of overlooked. On that part, and you guys came in with another, percentage. Basically, it was Kyle that came in with that percentage. And I don't understand that. It favored one party and there's 20 or 30 is gonna have to pick up that difference. And Roger, you and Kyle kind of stated that all that watershed is going into the Goshi land. Have you been out there to look at that?
Yeah, I've seen it.
And you assessed that water was going into theirs?
No,
Runoff water?
it's assessed by the benefit that he receives from the project.
It's the LiDAR show. It's-
Right.
Yeah.
LiDAR is how they determine how it goes.
But I think it was comments were made that the runoff water was going to theirs because it was the lowest part. which I question it is the lowest part. I'd say I'm the lowest part. I got a half mile on the north side of that. And there's nothing that goes into theirs. In fact, some of his water comes my way to the old route that goes down. But on his report, you know, like I said, he highly recommended this fair and ethical is 70-30, and then it got changed. Why do we pay an engineer if we're not gonna listen to him? This is probably the only time that new board members are gonna say, hey, why didn't we listen to, why did we do this? And then we don't follow up and we make our own decisions. And we would have been here, but my son had 3 people, Kyle was one of them, that were supposed to notify him on this meeting because he is a landowner to represent the party that he rents the ground from. But he never got word. And that's why he missed. And everybody said, oh, we apologize, we apologize. Well, it didn't help us. But the motion that you made helped one party and it hurt 20 or 30. And I thought that was wrong. The next question, what happens in the future when there's a repair? Nothing's been discussed on that. Is he gonna get off scot-free on that too, on the repair parts? Has that been talked about?
The assessment schedule is the assessment schedule.
Yeah,
So-
so all repairs go based off of the assessment schedule.
So he'll get 85% off of that too?
That's one factor in the equation. It's not the whole factor. It's one piece of the puzzle.
Does it matter where the repair is?
No,
If it's on his private line,
So it does matter where the repair is because there's different schedules for each lateral. So that follows the same process that every other drainage district repair will follow. And they're assessed out by the cost and the assessment schedule as all the factors of benefit in there.
okay. When this change was made, don't you think it should have went to another week? So people would have been realized that they had a chance to object. I don't think they were objecting to the 70-30. But when Brian says, hey, let's hurry up and decide this because there's nobody here today and get this passed, and then we don't have no recourse. And
that's not
basically what
exactly
happened.
correct, because at the closing hearing, we do make the decision on whether it's
But there was a change
That's-
made also.
right.
That's standard procedure. That's the time for the decision to be made. And I would assume, you know, I had a substantial conversation with Derek yesterday. We went over the discussion, the hearing.
I know you brought in the lift station. That lift station was discussed at February 8th because I was here. And you guys use that kind of the sideboard, hey, let's get more reduction because he did this lift station. No, he did this project on his own and he told me February 8th, you know, I did this project on my own. He stated that he didn't have no cooperation from the area surrounding landowners, which is untrue. I got a paper right here, Bill Mansky, us and Goshi's were working on this project. And then at the end of the day, Jay says, well, after a year, I didn't hear from anybody. Well, Jay was in charge. It was his land and Mansky was doing the bidding and I was there to see if I wanted to prove it, which I was all for. But when Jay said, I'm gonna do it on my own, and then he changed the lift station spot to benefit himself 100%, didn't benefit me one bit. But I still would have went along with that project, but he left his supervisor saying, well, I didn't get no cooperation from anybody, which is untrue. You guys heard one side of the story and that was it. And I was there February 8th to point that out too, but over time you forget.
I've heard both sides of the story. You've been to my house. We talked over all this. I mean, Derek made the comment when we were on the phone that this was a 5-minute decision, and it's absolutely not a 5-minute decision. I know a lot of circumstances around this situation, and the engineer's report was very numbers driven. Tyler specifically said in the meeting, the lift station he was aware of, but there was not a number factor put on that.
So you.
I don't know.
15% on it. From the 70 to the 85.
Not necessarily just
You
that.
did that, Kyle.
That I said that's not my only reason. I'm well aware of the situation around that particular piece of ground. And I have been for quite a while, so we have to make the decision on what's fair for the district
That's
as a
right.
whole.
You think that was, so what,
Yes, I do.
there's money shifted from negotiations to the other 20 or 30 parties that's gotta pick up his share. You put a
It's-
lot of time into this, you should know that figure, is it 100,000, 50,000, or whatever?
Depends on what the project is.
The
You
whole-
can't,
the
you
whole
can't come up,
project, The whole project, what was he assessed originally, and went from the 70 to the 85, what'd that bring it down to? Because when he walked out of here, he was all smiles, like he just won the lottery. And the other 20 or 30 people didn't, they're gonna have to pick up that bill. And you say that's fair? That's not fair. He did that tile project on his own. And he passed the buck to everybody else. And like I said, on this report that from he has a statement, I highly recommend that you use this 70-30, basically what it was. And he had two other people, two farmers, I think, Stecker and Rosemeyer, that worked with him, and they were with him that recommended that. And then once it gets here, then you go and make your own decision. And you think that's fair? That was not fair.
I respect your opinion, but that's why I
You
made.
know, I'm not gonna change your mind. But that wasn't fair. And to the new board members, when something's recommended and it's a high dollar figure, I think you should consider that. Because like I said, I was on the school board 20 years and something was recommended. We very ever seldom tweaked an adjustment on that. Especially if it wasn't fair to the whole community. But like I said, my concern now is, do we know what's gonna happen if there's a repair on his? Or a repair on this new project that went through? Is he gonna say, well, I don't wanna pay that, I should get 85% off that too? That's not fair. This will happen. There will be repairs on this stuff. You're old enough, you've been through this. You're not old enough. So there's nothing that can be done. Amendment on the motion or change the percentages or.
Anybody want to open up the hearing again? We'd have to start all over.
I don't know that we can.
I don't either.
I don't believe that's an option.
I don't think it's really an option to republish everything and start over. So I think it stands as it is.
It's nothing about starting over, it'd just be changing the percentages.
We had the meeting and it was final.
Is it fair?
I'm not saying this, there's nothing about drainage that's fair. I will not say it's fair
It's not
because
supposed
there's,
to be fair. It's fair to
not-
one person out of the 30. That's where, and you know that.
but there's nothing about drainage is fair.
I know, I'm just as old as you. I've been through it all.
Yeah.
That benefited one party. And that party's probably gonna get benefited and another one coming up. And a few years ago, he, declassification and he didn't have to pay on another tiling project because he did his own project and you guys excused him from that. How many times is this gonna happen? I hope you're fair in the future if you can't be fair on this issue. Because it wasn't fair that my son wasn't here to represent the other half. And there's two people up there that he had contacted. Tyler was the other one who was supposed to contact him when that meeting was, because he wasn't a landowner. But he was a renter representing another party. And he was not contacted. That wasn't fair either.
we don't contact Ken.
I've already had a discussion with him. But he made contact with people several times. To let him know, Kyle, you're one of them.
I had that conversation with
Yep.
him yesterday, and he acknowledged that the statement I said, which is the same thing I say to everyone that asks for notification personally about a hearing, is I will if I think about it and I'm able to, but I do not promise anything to anyone. I did not call him. I did not call Jay, who also requested a personal phone call. It was fair across the board from me. That is not something that we have to personally phone call every single person that asks for notification on a hearing. That's what we follow, what's in the law, the public notice, and you would have gotten that. So, I mean, it's not just blame on me.
They just played you, there was 3 people.
I know, but
Nobody contacted him. Represent the other 30 people.
his landowner could have contacted him too. That's not our responsibility.
So did he hand in a new report on what the dollar per person gonna be?
Right here.
What's that dated? I picked up one yesterday, but I don't know if it's the old one or the new one.
He just brought these in at
I picked it up
7
yesterday, but I don't know if it's the old one or the
7:58.
new one. Does it have April 11th on it?
That's what I was fine.
Yeah, so this would have been amended, these he literally just dropped off right before 8 o'clock,
I
like,
just picked it up yesterday.
Yeah.
well, he-
He had 2 of them,
So that would have been old ones.
but it,
Because we just got the,
These,
how do you know if it's the old one or new one?
we just got the new ones this morning.
Okay, he didn't have them available yesterday when I picked them
No.
up.
I
So I
don't,
can compare the old one with the new one and see how much it saved them and how much it's gonna add to myself and everybody else. Is that how that works?
you could compare the two, yes.
Yeah.
All kind of in there, but I'm very disappointed with the supervisors. The decision they made, it wasn't fair and ethical. And if you think I'm wrong, that's fine, that's my opinion.
I
know
will
your
respectfully
opinions.
disagree.
And if the new supervisors keep where, because it was recommended that that's 70-30, and one person changed it in here, and he got a second in everything else. It wasn't fair to the people.
Anything else for public discussion? Go ahead, state your name.
Sioux County resident.
Yeah, state your name.
Meeting, this is, concerns the pipeline.
Yeah.
Another topic I wanted to discuss also. As that meeting last night, there was 50 people in attendance, Kossuth County, residents. And the majority of them are against the pipeline. And the majority of them couldn't be here this morning, so I said I would come and talk about it. They're against the pipeline. And the other topic is the transfer station. And I had a discussion this morning with the manager of the transfer station and the recycling bins over here. The amount of unrecyclable items being put in there is disgusting. Garbage. He said he even found a carcass of a pig before. And, he said he's talked to you people and, nothing is being done. I just wanted to bring that topic up again. And, voice my opinion. And, that's it. Thank you.
The cameras put up.
Yeah.
They have cameras, but they're
Well, he said the cameras aren't pointed in the right direction. And he's talked to you about moving them so they could be, moving some of them so they could be more visible on the containers. And nothing has been done.
What's that, talk to Deb about that.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
What, talk to Deb Miller about that.
You what?
Deb Miller's the one that's, that.
Back, he's here.
well,
Go ahead, right there, yeah.
yeah, we'll bring it up.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean, I take, and I was told that it is only for rural residents of Kossuth County.
That's what it was designed for, correct?
Majority of the people that go there, in my opinion, are residents of Algona. And I go there and I live in Algona, and I go there and I park sometimes and watch people. And I've written down license plates and turned them in. He said that people have called him, what's his name, Dustin? And, he has turned in license plates and nothing is done. The most he said that they've done is given out warnings to people. And, in his opinion, they should be prosecuted and put on the radio and put in the paper of somebody being caught throwing garbage away in there, unrecyclable items. But just thought I'd bring that up also.
Anybody else for public discussion? Introduce the.
No, there.
Oh, that's in there?
Yeah.
I haven't got that far yet.
Yeah.
Who wants to be first? You want to,
We got the
approve the
agenda.
amended minutes in the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes and agenda?
So,
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Secondary road foreman. Everything great?
better. Fixed.
Roads look good up north. I drove a whole bunch of them the other day.
Yeah, we tried to get cut of the grass a little bit. She was getting wild.
Yeah, on the grass, Rod Bankin had called. Can we mow farther down on the northeast side of the intersection there between his and Smith's place
Where's this at now?
on
Collier's Corner,
A42?
Collier's Corner, that's it. They ain't lived there for 100 years, but it's still Collier's Corner.
Which corner is that?
Forest City.
It'd be
The intersection, but you said a corner.
the
Northwest.
northeast side of that intersection. If you're pulling up to the intersection from the north and you're trying to look to the east, with that hill, it's very hard to see stuff with the hill and grass. If they can mow farther down, he would appreciate that.
Nothing interesting, Scott?
Just going smooth right now.
See, there's working at the four-way bridge. Is that
Yeah, all the rest of the material, we got that all straightened out now. Yeah. Did you get it seeded, but it was kind of a long time of year to be throwing seed down, so.
a little bit dry?
It looks good up there now.
How soon will we be patching those, like that area and, Big Six?
We have been in contact with Blacktop Service, the engineer's office, and actually last Friday, was out with Bob Wagner, So the discussion is there, it's just a matter of them moving into the calendar, getting that done. We have, 4, I believe, bridge replacements, a 5th tile crossing that are a priority, so.
Gonna get over by Nick Ram's place when you do that.
That, we're gonna get we wanna get the hard surface roads that have granular surface approaches. Those are the first priorities, and, then by Nick Ram's, that is on the map as well,
Is it,
yes.
what happened there? Did that culvert just come up?
No, I think there's a corner on that is, was not compacted very well and it's settling.
Anything else for road foreman?
Hmm?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey Doug and Scott, thanks for getting everything dressed for it off. We can actually see.
Always.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Kossuth Regional Health Center.
Good morning, how are you?
Morning.
I was going to be voting today because I'm on vacation, and then I thought, I think I declined last month, so I'm never good. So I'd like to introduce Stephanie Capacious. Many of you already know her, but Stephanie has been a nurse manager with Kossuth Regional Health Center for many years. And it is a natural that she would assume the role of chief nursing officer. So welcome, Stephanie. We're thrilled that it is passed. So when you think about what's occurred over the last several years, back in 2019, right at the time that I was being named the CEO at Kossuth, but serving in the capacity of chief nursing officer, I was diagnosed with cancer. And the whole next year is just a series of surgeries and chemotherapy. And as I worked my way through that, we worked our way through that. It didn't seem like a good time to fill the position of CNO, because immediately following that, or at the tail end of that, we were entering a pandemic. The first pandemic in over 100 years. And so I continued to serve as the CNO in addition to the CEO. And now, over the past several months, I find myself thinking, just one more thing. And now it's summer. And not that summer's the panacea, but I find myself wanting to spend a little more time with family and the grandkids and time to get a CNO. So welcome, Stephanie. We're thrilled to have her there. She has hit the ground running, so I introduce her today because there will be times that either she or Colette will be here instead of me, and there will be times that you'll see all three of us. So let us do that. And anxious. This is the third time that I, in 4 years, have not had a CFO for a period of time. Twice, I'm gonna say it's Colette's problem. We're so excited. We're so excited that she brings her second little girl into this world. So very exciting news there. And she's due back too. So good for that. You want to run through the April financials? I don't know if you've seen it already.
We got them on our iPads. Yeah. The only thing I see, your debt service is
Yes.
kind of lacking
We're actually doing well.
yearly, the month.
Yes, the month, honestly, we had a couple of rough months. We had an issue with Medicare and Blue Cross, and it's not so much an issue, but just the practicality. So as we go through our Medicare cost report and our Blue Cross Walmart cost reports, those take a while sometimes to catch up. And when there's a period of catch up, we went for a period of 5 weeks without any reimbursements for services that worked through that catch up. So that definitely affects
You had two bad
our
months.
financial. We had 2 bad months in a row. Yeah, 5 weeks without any money coming in the door, from our major payers makes a huge difference. So, that'll even itself out, and it's just really the business of healthcare.
Yeah, yearly you're at
Yeah.
539, so that's not bad.
Absolutely. We're doing great annually. So, Definitely meeting our budget in all of our key areas. We're meeting up most of our strategic priorities. And so that's really a big deal when you think about where we've come from, and we've been so reactionary, just changing on a dime at the whim of, I shouldn't say at the whim of, but when every time Medicare has a change, we've of course had to follow in line with that. And so now it's sort of getting back to the normalization of the business of healthcare and becoming a little more strategic in mind. We've done a really an admirable job of meeting our key dashboard here. Proud of our team for that, because I think, well,
Looking at accounts receivable was good, but your debt service coverage went down. So I was kind of curious what did that.
we actually changed providers, and so we use a secondary coverage for debt service or bill collection. And as we changed providers, we found that there were some anomalies in the way the previous company had been handling some of the debt, bad debt in particular, and managing some of those older accounts. And so, we had to do really a full shift in terms of bringing back all of the older accounts and then transitioning to a new coverage model. And that affected our numbers greatly. Great question. You can see too, our non-operating income, about 1.2 million of that this year is a result of a couple very unusual things. One of those is receipts through the end of April for the fire, shed fire that we had.
Yep.
And the other big piece of that was some yet unreceived, but now having received some of the COVID related funds. So that puts us, bottom line way ahead. But that's a bit of an anomaly. Sort of things that'll continue.
Any
Questions about your financials? A few other exciting things going on. We have a new nurse manager named Kate Kearns. Tell us about Kate.
So Kate has been a nurse at Kossuth Regional for 13 years. She started out as a CNA, has worked her way up. Got her master's. I'm currently working on her. She will take over my position and do a great job. So we plan to have her roll in July 1st.
Also in July, a couple of new things will be arriving or beginning service at Kossuth Regional. One of those is Senior Life Solutions, sorry. And that's a program specifically for traditional Medicare patients. And it is a grief recovery program. It's an intensive outpatient mental health program, focusing primarily on grief, but many other focuses of mental health. So that should be operational by the end of July. Should be seeing our first patient. The new director of that has just been named. Her name is Allie Bowline. Allie's one of our nurses who has been working in our community health program. So she'll transition over the course of the next few weeks. Pretty excited. I know she's going to do a great job getting that program up and running. The other one that's really important to us is the home medical supply shop. And that should be operational also by the end of July. That'll be at Kossuth Regional Health Center on the main floor of the hospital. But that will allow patients here in our community to have a walk-in option for home medical things. So that has been a much needed service since the closure of the business. So something that community really needs. Our board of trustees will be working on the assignment of lease for the EMS facility. As you know, that's a 99-year lease that was dated back in 1994. And so needing to be reassigned ambulance to Kossuth County EMS. Pretty proud of how you worked your way through that. So thank you.
Still a work in progress.
Work in progress. It's definitely a work in progress. There's so many details, but what an important thing for this community. And then proud to say that we're going to start pediatric orientation day again this fall. They haven't done peds orientation day for a few years now. Because of the pandemic and just because we were normalizing operations and still falling within CMS's requirements for vaccine mandates, which have now been lifted. So COVID vaccine specifically, which has now been lifted. So we'll start that again this fall. And to see those little kids coming through the hospital. It's nice, right, part of our day. We do have a summer intern this summer, so pleased to have Krishna Patel join our team, and I can tell you she's incredibly industrious, working hard, so it's been a great program. Thank you, Marie. What questions do you have of us?
don't have
Anybody
any.
have any questions?
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Yes, gonna go spend the time with some cousins and my mom, so, and my grandkids.
And
There
great.
you go.
That doesn't,
And enjoy your cookies.
I know, thank you.
We have to acknowledge the loss transfer made by the Kossuth County Auditor in your packet. Let the minutes show that we acknowledge the transfer. We are up to approve and sign Project Hope proclamation.
All right, well, thank you for having us. And it's always exciting to have the summer months come, and we have these wonderful young college students join us for the summer. So summer interns, come on up.
Are they
I'd
bashful?
like to, or me,
Are they bashful?
really not.
Really?
I would like to introduce Jordan Busher, who would like to talk first, but then I'm going to have you be introduced to these great interns and also one of our committee members. And the key part of this is what he's going to discuss with you.
All right, so good morning, guys. I'm Jordan Busher. I intern with the newspaper. I'm here with the intern program with the economic development. And we're here to talk to you about Project Hope. So Project Hope is 2 weeks dedicated to donating items that will help provide a sense of ease and comfort for children and teens removed from their homes. This year, the weeks for Project Hope are June 18th through July 1st. Items that are collected will be delivered to the Department of Human Services, the Sheriff's Office, police departments, women's shelter, and schools around both communities. Throughout the whole event, interns gain the experience of volunteering and making a difference in the lives of people in need. The interns are requesting that the Kossuth County Board of Supervisors proclaim the weeks of June 18th through July 1st as Project Hope Weeks.
We did submit our normal proclamation that we submit every year, asking for you to proclaim that those 2 weeks are dedicated as Project Hope Weeks. And we do have that proclamation right in front of you, Roger.
Yep. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I would move to.
Kyle?
And I'll second.
Josh? I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimous.
Thank you. We have 2 copies.
Yeah, okay. I guess
Oh,
we
yours?
do.
We'll sign both.
Thank you. While you're citing, I'd like to have all of our interns introduce themselves, and then I would also like Tina Alpers to talk very quickly about the committee.
I'm Veronica Capatious, and I am gonna be a sophomore at Iowa State this fall. In the summer, I've had the honor of interning with Maureen at the Economic Development Center. And it's been a blast, and I'm learning a lot, so I would recommend it for anyone looking.
She works really hard. I'm glad she's made us a blast. Projects all the time.
Oh,
That's not ours.
All right,
It's on
so
board.
I'm Jordan Busher. I intern at Algona Publishing. Throughout the summer, I get to write the Progress Edition. So I go out to businesses, interview them, write stories about it. I finished my first year of college at Dakota State University, majoring in cyber operations.
I'm Cassie Menken. I am going to be a sophomore at UNI. I'm majoring in accounting with a minor in business communications, and I'm interning at the city of Algona this summer.
Hi, I'm Zoe McCormick. I'll be a junior at Purdue University, majoring in animal sciences, and I am a hog production intern for Smithfield this summer.
My name is Liliana Hill. I'll be a senior at Iowa State this year, and this is my 4th summer interning for the Kossuth Extension Office.
I'm Maya Kemna. I'm going to be a sophomore at the University of Iowa this coming year. I am a HR major, and I have the pleasure of working with Veronica and Maureen every day.
And I'm Tina Alpers.
I work at Smithfield and I'm on the career intern committee. I don't know how many years I've been on that.
You've been on it 17 years.
Maureen knows.
And, you know, what I love about it is, well, first of all, what we do is we plan this and we work on it all year long. And, we're planning it for every year for the interns. So we'll have like skill building sessions. You know, we plan the intern breakfast that we kick it off with. You know, get me on the spot right now and
Our next one is gonna be the Alice training with
Yes.
Law Enforcement Center.
that's gonna be exciting. I've never participated in that, so I signed up for it because I want to be a part of that. But anyways, it's something as an employer, I love. It fills in gaps for our interns. That it helps with recruiting. And they get a chance to network with other people or other interns, and meet other people from the county or, residing counties, so that they can hang out with. But it fills in the gaps and, hopefully they gain a little bit of knowledge that they didn't get at college or, and get to know a little bit more about Kossuth County, Palo Alto County that they didn't know before, so. But it does definitely, it blows my mind when I'm at Iowa State, recruiting and I sit there and I have people come up to me like other recruiters and they're like, you guys have a program in Kossuth County with the Economic Development Corporation. Like that's a huge added value. So I commend Maureen on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it helps me recruit interns.
Well, I think you were the ones that were the drivers of this, along with our businesses that had said we need to have this. We knew futuristically there was going to be a workforce issue. And that was what really spurred this on. So without your help and assistance and really supporting it, we do appreciate it. So, but I'm going to ask you if I could take a picture of you with our interns. They always like this.
What's the best place to intern at? I was waiting.
No, go ahead. What do you think, guys?
Well, everybody's gonna say their own. They don't wanna say. They're not gonna say.
Why don't you walk around and we'll get a quick snapshot.
They are a little bit bashful. They didn't answer really quickly. I'll slide over here for a bit. Can you get all of us?
I got it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So again, thank you for your assistance on the proclamation and helping us with Project Hope. You know that that's very important. It's all year long, basically. It's not just through the summer months. In fact, we, Veronica and I just filled a bag last week for a request for a family. And so it is very ongoing. And we know that it does help and assist. And so we do appreciate any help that you can give us and provide us. So thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank
Yep.
you.
We are up to decision to approve Kossuth County Public Record Policy and authorized placement on the Kossuth County website. We have it in our folder. Does anybody have any questions on the policy or where we're going to put it on the website?
Do you wanna, talk through where it'll be on the website, Tammy? Or do you know?
Would be better.
that.
He's not here today.
He's not, I don't know if he's here today. So,
Just Louis. And
Hey, Derek, you wanna come quick and tell us where you're gonna put that on the website,
So-
policy?
Oh, okay, pass it.
Yeah.
oh, we didn't.
we have,
Yeah, but
We're talking.
before we
We can put it wherever you want, probably under the about. Section there where we have, like 80, 10 policies.
Records request.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
okay.
That's okay. We'll just put a link called records request. Don't think too big a deal.
Any other questions for Derek? Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
And, the copy that, there was a couple updates to the policy from department heads. Doug had a couple additions, and I don't think that those additions are on the ones in your packet, but it's just adding, what did we add? The
Zoning.
zoning
Transfer
and
station.
transfer station to it. So those are additions to the one, and then, I didn't hear anything else from any other department heads that there were any other.
Anybody have any questions? It's a one-stop place to find records.
Yeah.
Would entertain a motion?
When we were discussing it in the department head meeting, it was talked about for like the elected officials, and I see they were listed under general information requests for the most part. Should we clarify that, other elected officials are their own custodians in that regard, or separate that out? Don't know. I just know, it was briefly mentioned in the department
Well-
head meeting, but I don't know.
But this is just to give them a place to start, so I think if they get started first, they'll progress to that.
Yeah, and that's,
So I don't know if you wanna
That's
confuse
fine.
people before they even get to where they're going.
Keep it simple and then
Right.
that way, gives them a direction to start with and then you can go further if need.
This isn't the end all, this is the
Right.
beginning.
yeah. So that, I think I'm.
I'll
good with
make
that.
the motion to approve and
Josh?
to post online.
Thank you. Do I have a second to Josh's motion?
Second.
Carter? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous.
Real quick, did we need to specify the location in that motion, or are we just gonna leave it up to Derek to kind of just put it in that tab we'll
If
use?
that's okay
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine. I just didn't know if we needed to clarify that.
That's ministerial stuff.
I think
You're okay with
it's up to Derek to get
Yeah.
it in the right spot. We are up to discussion decision approved retaining Van Borken Associates for HR services and approved invoice or annual fee.
So we got this invoice, for March 15th of 2023 to March 15th of 2024 in the amount of 5,800 for Renee Van Boken. I know we had talked at maybe a couple of other board meetings about just having one, because now that we use the payroll attorney and HR through Aileen and me. So before I paid this, I wanted to make sure that this is something you wanted to continue your services through. I know Doug uses her for union negotiations. We did ask Ayla Shakuni, they also could represent us for union negotiations, so if we decided to go just with them, they would be able to provide those services to us as well. So I just wanted to know how you wanted me to proceed, if you wanted to keep both or wanted me to go.
The only union that's active is the road workers.
Yes,
Correct, Doug?
yes.
I believe so.
I'm the only one.
There was something, I don't know if the courthouse ever organized or reorganized. Okay.
Are you satisfied with using someone different than Van Borken?
Well, I do use Renee quite a bit. I don't know. I don't know anything about all this. I think Renee actually has contacts within all this, including that she will, if needed, will get advice.
Um,
Did we ever get like, from Allers and Cooney, you know, what their charges would be for the HR services and stuff, so we can kind of compare the two?
We
or-
already use them for HR too, been using them both, so it's not an additional service, the only
Okay, right.
additional would be union. If we use them for union, because we do not use them for union.
so we could still use Van Berken for union services if so needed on an hourly basis instead of doing a retainer. That would be my question.
That's not what she presented to us, but
Do we have to do a little research on that before we vote on this?
has anyone talked to her? Or,
Before I made any contact, you guys did want us to be captured.
I don't think we need two HR firms.
yeah. Especially when one is a flat annual fee for everything. Whether we use it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, should we have her on the phone for a conference call at a meeting and talk about it that way, or?
Well, I think you gotta figure out if the, Cooney would represent us or represent, us against the union or however you wanna say it.
They,
Road,
Yeah.
They will.
I just don't know what.
and what the cost would be before we make this decision. Is that fair or not?
Yeah. I would
Price,
say
price
that-
would be
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. See which one's more reasonable.
Then do I need to contact Renee and find out what the cost would be just for union?
Right.
Because I believe this is for everything.
Right.
Maybe ask for an hourly rate if, used her as on an as needed basis for anything.
Well, I don't know that we need her if we're using HR.
It'd only be.
Doug, you said you still use her for HR stuff, right?
No, this would.
Or that's just union?
This would be issues, contract issues with the secondary road.
Okay,
You'd think it would be on an hourly basis, figure out what it'd be. But, or when you get the information,
yeah, that's
if you don't get it next week, it's the next week, we're not, it's nothing in a hurry.
Okay.
Cross that one off. We are up to discussion on proposed amendment for planning and zoning ordinance for hazardous liquid pipelines. Open the floor up for the board for discussion. Right now, I don't have it in front of me. You remember, Josh, is it 2.5 miles?
For a city setback,
Cities is 2.5 miles.
2.5 mile.
yeah, I believe so.
I think it is.
I know it is.
Which other setback was we going to discuss?
I think we can discuss anything inside the proposed ordinance, but yeah, page A11
Yep.
of A17 is the setbacks. 25.41 is 2.5 from the city.
Any discussion? Carter, you have anything you'd like to discuss?
I want to see where the board is at as far as what thoughts are in regards to the current setbacks laid out in the ordinance and in the name of having something that we could potentially be comfortable with in an ordinance. As a board, what are we thinking as far as that would be the right way to go about the setback? That's, I think that's summary of the main thing what the conversation is gonna be.
I think the setbacks in the ordinance were proposed by the zoning commission was to not have the pipeline come into the county, period. Now, do you want to change it so that it's possible for the pipeline to come through the county? Is a whole kind of different subject than what the zoning board actually brought to us. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
So you're in that situation where there's a lot of people don't want the pipeline as of now. I talked to Luke this morning. Nobody else has signed a contract or signed easement form since 3 weeks ago.
nothing's been recorded.
Correct.
Nothing's been recorded.
Right now, for the Summit project, they were 3/4 of a mile short of 50% of easement signed in Kossuth County. I don't know what Navigator's exact. Like 47% of something.
Summit was at 46.81%, Navigator's at 22.81.
Okay.
Obviously, the difference in the timeline of the projects, but yeah, they were, that's their recorded numbers that we have.
And then my next question to the board is, do you think that you have the wherewithal to stop the project?
I guess,
Individually, no. No, I don't.
I don't
But,
either.
but this isn't about whether I, as a supervisor, can stop the project, and that's not the point. So I don't know that that's the right question to ask. You know, as
But
far as,
yeah,
At some point, we have to ask that question, is it the county's position to stop Summit and to stop Navigator? Is that our position?
I don't think it's our position to stop anything. It's a position to make sure that our county is taken care of in the way that is best, that we best can. That, and our people and our land, you know, however that looks, I don't know, it's a rather, as a board, it's not a matter of this is what we want, this is what we don't want. You know, it's not a matter of stopping or letting go. Because sometimes that stuff is out of your control. But how can we, as a board? we need to keep in mind safety of, you know, our people, in our county. That's the number one issue. The second issue is preservation of land. Making sure that we don't got, you know, have things coming through that potentially damage property, things like that, you know, we've got people that have lived in Kossuth County their whole life and, you know, their farms are sacred ground to them, and to have, you know, something like this coming through their ground, it kind of just disturbs everything, you know. And I think that's, in my opinion, you know, the two most important things is safety and the preservation of our land. I think one thing from the PHMSA meeting about a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
week and a half,
Week
two
and a
and a
half,
half, whatever it's been, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the question, what the pipeline companies are challenging is you guys can't regulate this, that, and the other thing because PHMSA does that. Well, then PHMSA states at their meeting, no, the counties are supposed to be the ones regulating siting and routing and stuff. And so, you know, they're throwing it back. And so we shouldn't just say, well, it's completely out of our hands and that's all PHMS's job, because PHMS is not gonna do that. And they said it's not in PHMS's department to regulate siting and routing. That's
But it
not
is
what they
their
do.
Department for Safety.
Their Department for Safety.
Yeah.
So we, you know, that's not, when we're talking about setbacks and talking about that area of things, we're not regulating them
But isn't
against PHMSA.
setback safety?
But you don't have to regulate it that way. And that's what I'm saying.
That doesn't have to be the only reason.
They do take care of safety regulations. Yeah.
To me,
But there's other
setbacks are
factors.
safety.
There's other factors that go into setbacks more than safety, though it is a huge issue, for sure.
Yeah.
So. I'm asking the board, because I'm one person out of 5, what are your feelings on the current setbacks in the ordinance? Should we wanna go forward with something in the future? What are we thinking of? And I don't know, is that,
I think the ordinance as it stands says no pipeline in Kossuth County.
I don't know,
Yeah,
that's the question I really asked, though, I mean.
I know, but that's the way
So I guess
Proceed.
to deal with the setbacks specifically, 2.5 miles from a city limits completely cuts off the ethanol plant at Lakota. That's the fact of the matter. The 3,000 feet setback for 25.42, 43, 44. Those setbacks make, I guess. So even on Navigator's project, those setbacks more than make that project immovable as well. Summit, the population density and stuff in the southern portion of the county with residences is higher than it is up north.
Yeah.
So there's different things that kind of are feasible in that regard, but 3,000 feet is not manageable at all to what you had said. So I guess for a couple of reasons, I don't feel those are things we can work with and defend. Because I don't think it's our position as a government that has to represent both sides. I don't feel that's our position to say yes or no to a specific project, especially this category. And I know we as a board typically hear the concerns. But I had one individual reach out and ask about the pipeline discussion. Brian Till just was not able to be here today. He asked me to share his public comment. And he said, I oppose unconstitutional limits on the use of my property. Members of the Board of Supervisors and their appointees change on a regular basis. The bias of you and those folks today will likely be different than those who follow. I urge you not to do wrong things that must be undone by those who follow. And not saying he's magic by any means, but there definitely are people who have signed agreements. The numbers represent that. And I think we need to weigh a lot of factors here. But the current numbers that are proposed, I don't feel are workable.
I think the issues, they're just, we don't have any concrete information about this gas, if there is a leak. You know, it's been kept quiet by the pipelines and not been very willing to share that information. Nobody really has a good idea. Is it 1,000 feet if there's a break?
So two big things that I would highlight from the PHMSA meeting in Des Moines that was talked about by the emergency management coordinator for the Satarsha, whatever county they're in, their emergency management coordinator for the county said for the first 45 minutes after they were even notified about the event happening, they did not know the type of material that was coming out of that pipeline. I know, and it was still flowing. It took over 4 hours to get the valves closed. That, I guess that kind of plays into the conversations we've had before about our regional hazardous response team coming out of Mason City. It could be an hour, give or take, for them to respond. Well, that event, they didn't even know the substance they were responding to for almost that time. And I can't speak to all the PHMSA regulations. I don't know if either the pipeline representative can for this, but I think the thing that's been highlighted is that company was not in compliance with the federal regulations at the time, hence why they are being fined massively. And if they had been in compliance, the effects would have been dramatically less. So there's a lot of pieces to that equation. I know people talk about that very often, but if you look at the specifics of that situation, what happened and why it happened to the extent that it did, that explains things, I guess, to me.
And I go
I was
back,
very informative, yeah.
nobody sitting in this room is an expert on safety on pipelines.
No.
It's not our job to be that.
Yeah.
Experts
And I've said that before. I don't feel that me or anyone else here has the expertise to put a magic number on this. High or low, wherever that number is, I don't feel it's in our wheelhouse.
At the PHMSA meeting, they did talk about the, maybe Kyle, you can remember, but HDD boring under rivers and waterways and such.
And I don't know if you have more there.
No, go ahead.
I don't remember all the specifics, and I don't remember the situation they were talking about, but that was, the person that mentioned that was for a Native American reservation.
Right.
And because of their independent status, they can regulate some of that stuff kind of on their own. And they can go above and beyond in different categories. And I believe the boring he was talking about, he mentioned that it was like 45 feet deep, which I don't know where they got that number from. I don't know any technicalities behind that. I don't know what they were going under or around or whatever. But he did say there was things that they had put in as far as processes to be more prepared. And I guess one of the things that, I don't know if it was him or someone else, one of the things that was recommended was CO2 sensors for people's houses that are within a certain range, so that if a level spiked or whatever, they could detect it because you can't smell it. I don't know all the possibilities that are out there, I guess, but there was definitely a number of things that were discussed there.
Yep, yeah. Well, I think it's important to our source of water is a very big thing to make sure it's okay in the event of an emergency. Don't want all that flowing into Prairie Creek or to the Wine River or whatever it is, you know. So, yeah, I was go ahead.
But we still don't, that, none of those answer the question though, what's the safe distance?
Right.
Still don't know that. I don't know, is it 500 feet, is it 1,000 feet?
And that's being tested. And, you know, different counties take different approaches to that. I was, and in reading, I read quite a bit in regards to the last couple of weeks, Minnehaha County, out in South Dakota has passed an amendment to their zoning ordinance, for hazardous pipelines. And their setbacks are far lower than ours. And we're talking 330 feet. And
Was that from
from a residence
330 feet?
for property owner, and even that is not satisfactory to the pipeline company. When I'm reading, and that they are offering a 250-foot settlement to that, and so even at 330 feet, that is not a desired setback, so, or, you know, a workable one in their terms, and then we're talking South Dakota, which is less populated than it is here, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Not saying I want 330-foot setbacks, I'm just,
Has anybody heard anything on the lawsuits? Either one of them?
no word from Shelby County. I've talked to Steve King several times.
What about Bremer?
Bremer, no word yet, to my knowledge. There's no decisions
I haven't heard anything.
made anywhere in Iowa yet in regards to that. But
Utilities board hasn't,
utilities board is not deciding,
they haven't decided yet either.
so,
What do we want to?
but I wanted to keep the conversation going. And, you know, what are we thinking, what are we looking at? Cause I think if you're afraid of the ramifications of having too large a setback or whatever, you know, whether you have an eighth of a mile, whether you have a half a mile, whether you have a mile, now certainly there's differences in all those. But I think my point is, in the pipeline company's eyes, it's not going to be satisfactory regardless.
Jeff,
So,
you got any thoughts on
I can't speak to the distances. I'm not a scientist, so I mean, I have to think about safety and like I said, safety and preservation of land, you know. I want to say the setbacks that we have here are good, but like I said, I can't say that for sure because, you know, not a scientist, I can't, you know, think out in my head, you know, how far this gas is gonna travel, things like that.
I don't think they're gonna give you the opportunity to learn anything
No.
before you have to make a decision is our problem.
well, and it's not like all of these numbers here are just random figures either. And I mean, the planning and zoning commission did look at things, as far as, say, 2.5 miles versus a 2 mile setback from a city limit. 2 mile is a I wouldn't call it scientific number,
It's
but
in-
it's already in our planning and zoning for city zoning. I mean, that's just built in anyway, so that's a number that does make sense. You know, to have at least 2 miles, I think that's a given, you know, that's okay. But, you know, when we're talking about the way the planning and zoning commission reasoned was that a DNR says you have to be half mile from, or 3,000 foot from a hog facility. Or, well, for safety, for whatever. And, you know, how much,
I believe it's 1,800 feet from a residence for a hog building.
Yeah, I think scientist,
What did I say?
1,800.
I said 3,000.
Yeah.
Eighteen,
They,
sorry,
they
excuse me.
put 3,000.
Excuse me, excuse me, and so they put a quarter mile in, I said that wrong, my bad. So they put a quarter mile in there, which is less than that, I mean, and, you know. I guess I don't think the numbers are all just pulled out of a hat.
No.
But. So it's not like we don't have any like stand on or something, and we're just making those numbers up, but.
But the numbers do make it impossible for them to put a pipeline through Kossuth County.
So are you wanting to lower it to a point to,
So I'm saying that
I
mean, it, just make a decision at some point.
Just doing a little, looking there, it says it rises 49 miles into the, up. Before it starts breaking down.
What's that, Jack?
carbon dioxide goes up in the atmosphere?
I know, but I'm just saying, that's one example. You know, goes 49 miles up before it starts breaking down.
The problem is it isn't gonna go just up, you know, it travels and it is a heavier gas. And, we have heard from other people that, you know, are in school for studying these kinds of things and how that gas travels and does tend to stay lower to the ground. So if it's going 40 miles, you know, would you say 49 miles up in the atmosphere? What, you know, how far is it going the other direction?
Yeah, it's found anything in that yet.
Yeah, yeah. So even if we had a, you know, 2.5 mile setback, there's still that significant risk of it traveling past that setback anyways.
And
I mean, I'd like to have more information on, you know, how far it expands. You know, sideways.
but I don't think you'll ever get it because it depends upon the weather, the atmospheric conditions, and there's a whole bunch of variables that.
Anyone will tell you that.
Yeah.
There's no concrete, this is exactly how far it travels.
It's not gonna be a defined
But
area.
it's still gonna boil down to how many landowners sign easements and does the state of Iowa.
Grant them permit.
Allow eminent domain.
If they grant eminent domain, it doesn't matter what we do in Kossuth County.
No.
That's,
Does anyone know the date that the IUB has set to decide something?
The
yeah,
hearings are set for this fall, aren't they?
right.
Oh, it's October.
Summit wants to know definitely before the end of the year.
Sure.
That's the last thing that I read.
I don't have the schedule memorized, but I believe it's starting this fall.
And they've already had some hearings. And it's all the same thing that we hear in this boardroom.
I still think it'd be good to have something in place before that decision. My opinion.
So I guess my question to the board then is, do you want something different than what we have in front of us? We have to decide that at some point. That's not a decision we're gonna do today.
No,
Yeah,
no,
But do we want further discussion?
what are you all looking for in, and myself, in making a decision? What are we, I mean, what do we want to pursue?
Well, I'd like to have information, you know, that I can look at, that says it's, you know, that, you know, 1,000 feet.
You're never
You're
gonna
not
get
gonna
it.
find it,
Jack.
okay.
So I mean, so how do you make a decision?
You're never gonna get that information.
So then you might as well leave it the way it is.
I'm fine either way. I just,
I mean, you know,
at some point, we have
I
to,
mean, you know, how do you make a decision? You don't have any, you can't get any information to base it on.
you never will get any information.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is there is information behind the numbers. It's just, or at least information behind certain numbers that you can go off of, you know, at a bare minimum. Are you gonna get exact scientific figures? No.
if we go to like you, said in South Dakota, it was 250 foot, they weren't satisfied or? that was very-
330 feet more. And they lowered it from 750 feet in Minnehaha County. And they passed their board 3-2 to, they
330.
actually voted 2-2, and then 2 weeks later, they voted to pass it 3-2. To lower it from 750 to 330. And the company was still offering a 250 foot settlement, basically. And they've offered that more than once through the Dakotas and
That's Summit.
Nebraska and Iowa, yeah. That's Summit, you know.
Pipeline wanted 200.
Because Pipeline didn't want anything more than 250 foot. But that just happened this last week. Yeah.
That's.
I'm just saying in their case, what's going on there. Yeah. Not advocating for those businesses.
Well, I think we need to try to get some more information before we can.
Just I'm asking, what information do we want to get?
Well, I think we'd all like to see plume studies, but that's,
Yeah,
we're not gonna
get
have.
Again, I don't think that's,
Yeah.
But I think other than that, the planning and zoning gave up the recommendation and I think for lack of information and something that, I honestly would have to agree with, the planning and zoning commission on it, so. Because we, if we don't have the information, we can't really adjust the setbacks or anything to.
Well-
Anything that would be agreeable.
If Summit comes through and they decide that they want a variance, go to planning and zoning and get a variance.
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
he's on, or what do you mean?
You can get a variance from any ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying, what is the Board of Adjustment?
I'm not
Right.
gonna second guess what they're gonna say.
No,
We don't really have much authority over that except appointing the members.
Right.
right,
Um,
they're their own board.
Right.
and I had called Tim Whipple yesterday to ask him some questions in regards to that process and how that would all work. I guess, and maybe Doug, I don't know if you can speak to this at all, for variances that are granted or requested, is there specific criteria on what they look for or a process? Can you talk about that at all, I guess?
Board of Adjustment and grant variances. Additional use permits, permits. The people requesting the variance in their application statewide. The Board of Adjustment notifies adjacent owners and the public through newspapers, adjacent owners through mailing. And the newspaper, and they'll have a hearing and they'll make a decision.
Is there certain criteria they have to look at in that decision?
It would be based on the application and why the variance is being requested. For example, if an area variance, the zoning ordinance requires a 5-acre minimum for area in agricultural zone areas. If somebody's has a building site that is 4 acres, they would like to have a variance from that to sell an existing building site and not include the tillable land, make it 5 acres. So it depends on what the variance is and what the reason why the requesters are asking.
Well, we need to move on, so. Carter, Mr. Stacker goes through both of your districts. Do you want to have a discussion on this later?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we should probably,
we'll put it on the agenda again.
2 weeks.
That's fine.
Is that fine?
I'd kind of like to have people make a decision whether you're going to change the ordinance or not, the recommended ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
One kind of final comment I did have. As far as companies are required to submit a report of inspection after 5 years. Being good, if something goes wrong historically in projects, it's gonna be within the first 5 years, and that was discussed
that was at the fence.
at the fence committee. And that it would be good to have it in there, to have the report of inspection, say after 3 years versus 5 years. Just to ensure better standards.
Mhm.
That would be one suggestion.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good point. The other point I was going to bring up with this is I think we should, and I don't know how specifically to tie it in, but that soil compaction study Iowa State is doing.
Yep.
When I talked to Spencer yesterday, he said they are, with ISG, they are, working to incorporate things from that study into their conversations with the utilities board and try and, lay out requirements as far as wetness factors, so we don't have compaction that lasts for decades. And I think that would be a valuable piece to incorporate here.
keep those in mind. And, I think we'll close the discussion on pipeline and move on to, okay.
You said that only 2 of them, the pipeline's going through, Mr. Wacker has about a mile and a half. It's going through.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Every district. He has from the Irvington 169 to the river, the one river.
Yep.
Okay.
So he's got a piece to go.
Small chunk.
It's still something.
Quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I didn't at the beginning, because I probably get time, but here's something if you think about. Jimmy Powell is the chief operating officer for Summit. Under oath in North Dakota, he talked about, they would not release the plume study because of terrorism. And I got to thinking, my gosh, they could do it in multiple places. They could do it either side of the valve. Terrorists can do anything. They can bring in drones. That's researching that. So we're never gonna know a safe distance. Are they gonna do tests in multiple places instead of one frame? I think you guys have a lot of leeway because he himself said this thing is so dangerous, we can't even tell you. Because of terrorist threats, there's 2,000 miles, they can go away and be protected. But we look at these young people, my wife's a high school counselor, I got 2 kids in Iowa. And I just love the young people and, we can't protect them. Going to, so I think when we're trying to tip the scale, what we do here, I would rather go after them and protect them than I would. The other comment that was made was, some people want this, they want to get money, the ones that signed said, I hope that they don't come, I don't want my land to go, I want dangerous, I don't want to sue. So I think we need to understand that that's what that part of that. The other big thing is, what would happen if something breaches? We want to talk about ethanol, are they even allowed these pipelines to open up? Hundreds or thousands killed. such an attack. When there's already equipment they're starting to put in places, and they put it in-house, they don't even need the pipeline. To make methanol. So I think it's the big scope to think about. But I think the variance that he said that we can't, we just don't know, this is so dangerous. And that gives you the right, because you're here to protect us, and that's part of what your responsibility is as a supervisor. So I think doing the right thing is always the best thing. And I think with these young people, it really sparked me that that's the right thing to do. I just want to leave you with that when you're considering the place.
Doug's up next for.
Yeah, Jack ain't back yet.
Thank you. Good, good.
Sure, go ahead. We got a minute.
PHMSA doesn't regulate the site with pipelines, the IEP does. So that's why PHMSA says it's not us, and not in the state of Iowa, it's the state of Iowa. If you go to Nebraska, it's the counties. If you go to South Dakota, it's the states, or it's the state. So when PHMSA says it's not us, it goes to the state has the right to defer to the county. In Nebraska, they chose to, so we route by county, or we permit by county, in the state of Nebraska, but in the state of Iowa, for chapter 479B of their code, we regulate at the state level, just to clear that confusion up. And then Jimmy's statement in North Dakota, all pipelines fall under critical infrastructure. That's not unique to CO2 in terms of us having to protect the plume studies. He was speaking as a generality of all hazardous pipelines that fall under protected infrastructure. It's not a unique that we're more scared of CO2.
PHMSA did state at the meeting that that's up to your local governing bodies. That I believe was the wording used on siting and routing.
Right.
Which,
So that could mean that.
Safety is still up to PHMSA,
Yeah,
not us.
right.
None of us are experts on safety.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
and
say
they-
I'm never gonna be one.
and they have access to experts for that reason.
Some of the pipelines are paid up, they don't do pipelines, why don't you get some tax in those failures and see how far the damage going? That would be, hey, they can pay, and this way, they can pay. This is how far out the back, I've read some articles about, you know,
Yeah, the Jack. Doug, you wanna start on the Rockler, Irvington lease? We can do that without, there.
Yeah, we received a lease, Josh Rockler. Tenant for a long time on both of these gravel pits. Returned a signed lease to us, so it's time for the board to complete their action and make the agreements. The first one is for 9.6 acres down at the Irvington gravel pit. And the second one is for the Rourke gravel pit. One is row crop, one is hay. Just be taking action on to read it and then have the chair sign those. So there's the over hit right there. This is Irvington.
Okay. I got the first one in section 36.
That would be Irvington. Section
do I-
36 in Cresco.
Do you have, numbers that he's paying for rent before we approve it?
We finalized all that before
Yeah.
when we approved them.
Yeah, it's 9.6 acres, $1,708.
Okay.
And the award is $505. And that's right at, the parcel is 5 acres, but there's been some gravel.
Okay, so the first one we got is section 36, Josh Rothler. Farm lease, do I have a motion to approve? Second,
Second.
motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're all ayes.
And then
The next,
over bid.
section 2. Do I have a motion to approve the farm lease for Rothler for section 2?
So moved.
Josh, second,
I'll second.
Carter? Any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried, unanimous.
I think, yeah, we need that to be signed and attested to here, please. And I will notarize this. So thank you.
And we have some road work. In Irvington.
Yeah, we had a request from what used to be Century Link, now being called Lumen, Des Moines. They are putting in approximately 3,000, or they would like to put in approximately 3,000 feet of fiber optic cable on the north side of section, or north side of 210th Street, south side of section 3, part of section 2 of Irvington Township. And then crossing 210th Street. 210th Street's B40, McGregor, east of Algona. This would be out by Dave Jensen's home, Lou Peffer's home. Be improving communications out in that area. I
Looks
would
like-
recommend that the board would approve of this.
They're crossing 170th as well.
Yeah, they would be boring under one set. All this is underground boring.
Okay.
Yes, they'd be crossing that 170. That's a level B, a level B road.
Oh, okay.
And it is all boring.
Carter, would you like to make such a motion?
Yep, I'll make the motion to approve it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Stecker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Unanimous. Discussion with county engineer and zoning administrator.
Signature here, Roger, before I forget. Okay, thank you. Down, there it is. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, construction, the bridge up in Lincoln Township is completed. Resurfacing projects. Heartland, they did, their subcontractor finished up the pulled in place work on the Lots Creek Road yesterday. That now needs to cure for a minimum of 2 weeks. It'll probably be a little bit more, and then Heartland will be moving in. They are crushing gravel down at the Irvington pit right now for the mix. So things are moving along with the resurfacing. We also have a pre-construction conference tomorrow afternoon with Graves Construction. That's for bridge. It's P64 right south of Titonka. Be approximately 3 miles, I believe, 3.5 miles north of Highway 18. So when Graves moves on to that project, that roadway will be closed, and we will also be notifying the public and using our notification tool for that. I think.
What was the website for that again? Is it Iowa County Engineers?
Yeah, I'm not sure, right off the top of my head what that is. If you would Google search Iowa County Engineers Public Website, I think it will take you to that. Iowa Department of Transportation, Highway 169, I believe, is almost completed with their micro sealing. And tomorrow, the bridge south of Fenton is supposed to be closed for that construction. So Highway 15 traffic will be using our P30 and B19 per that agreement. I'm still evaluating people for the mechanic's position. We have the lead yard position open and being advertised, and we approved the hiring of another person at our transfer station. I'm going to get an application out for that. We do have a future expense. We decided to purchase 5 more DEF tanks as we are getting more trucks using DEF and more equipment using DEF. We are realizing that all of our shops need to have DEF tanks. So we already had 6 of them, so we're getting the rest of the shops situated with that. Got some equipment coming in. 2 maintainers will be delivered sometime this week. That's just about everything that's going on.
Will we have those bills to pay then before the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to have trucks. I planned on purchasing some trucks this fiscal year, but there are some parts that are not there, and I don't know if they're going to be delivered, and I don't know if we'll get paid, so.
Scott Schulte, oh, not to interrupt, Scott
No, that's
Schulte called me and they're not happy with the maintainer that they received for the fairgrounds. He's still interested in one from the county.
Okay.
So maybe you'd like to visit with Scott sometime. I don't quite know what he wants for sure.
Well, we kind of spoke about it in the board meeting. I don't know. I don't feel the secondary road department needs to make a donation to the
No.
fair board.
I think it would be purchased. I mean, we'd have to figure out a price.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that would be, I would think the first thing we need to do is decide what the price would be.
Okay.
And then they could look at it, decide from there.
All right.
So he was going to try and get on the agenda next week and talk to the board.
Okay. I'll review the agenda and have some information on
Right.
on the machine we were visiting about.
Yeah, was that a G?
It was a G or an H, I cannot remember exactly. I thought it was an H or something.
I thought the county should probably keep the H's for spare. They're better.
Actually, we have a G that has less hours than
Do
an H, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that'd be up to you.
And as we rotate in new equipment, we would keep the best machine as a spare, so.
Right.
How long we keep it would be to get that new machine, get more machinery next year, next fiscal year.
Hopefully. Only took a year and a half to get these, didn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah, it's taken. But chassis are even worse.
Doug, I went back to that email on P20 because I knew you had put the link in there. It's
Yeah.
iceasb.org/road notifications/subscribe.
Yeah.
So is that Iowa County Engineer
Well,
Association Service
that
Bureau?
would be how you would subscribe, but the other one, there's two links in that. One is a subscription to a notification tool, and one is to the
Yep.
website that actually shows a map.
And then the other one is roads and then county and then Kossuth. Yep.
I think that's the one that shows the map, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll send that information to the board again. I believe I sent an email at the beginning of the year, but I'll review things.
Hey, Doug, the company that asphalt on 169.
They've done some seal coat roads for us.
That was by Smith Lake, and look at where the left lane and right lane hook together, there's gaps like this white, things white.
Well,
They didn't get it hooked together.
I don't know. I've looked at a couple spots. It's a micro seal, so. And the foot take breaks.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a 15-minute break before we do drainage.
Thanks, Ben.
My toes are still there, I can feel them.
I was lost. They have to start really lost.
I did get a hold of Mark's son, he was out there. We're doing. And track and stuff.
Just want to be home, they have fun.
That'd be just a story. Yeah. Nick, let's not burn that here. Okay. So I didn't want to burn it, okay.
Why'd you put a screen on top of it?
Yeah. So they, I don't think they did.
I've been having that.
They haven't burned it yet.
No.
And that last rotation that I do it. Whatever I do, it takes them. I can't get them to make that, I can use that for one. I turn. Okay. Joe goes, yeah, he got patent, right? Oh, patent. Yeah. Yes, I. It's harder to, you know, it's just. It's going over. Yeah. My hands on the griddle. You gotta do something. Because every time you deal, here's one. Every time. See, there's. It's like. What's that? I don't think it'll take that. Okay. Everyone. Figures one out. Yes. I didn't want to. Things are should hire. You gotta sit in there, so it's.
I mean, you get the tin, listen, sign up there, shut the door. One of the, that was the shit. Entry in my work was a hand. Oh, it is also something, go find, I did not. Took stuff. Anyway, this didn't work. I got it. Because those get you get big balls. You gotta pay all for that. It's how you all there. But we're. Yeah, no, well, like I said, it's you have some distributors, they try to move city. They start building plastic. That's what you have 6 cents. Yeah, you know, makes sense. And he could just think that I should be, yeah, I said it, and all else I put steel. See, on there, what is that? Revolution of that day. Don't like to have a reason, that's even your chip out there. Oh, I ain't here, that's all space. That one is. That answers that question. You make a problem. You're also, you're doing that project for 100 years. It's the people that got this. We're the ones that's already discussed how much we're gonna pay you guys. Oh, yeah. Making sandbars and being cars. Once they get it, they get water. And the side's gonna get. Yeah. It's already making sandbars. Yeah. Seating. This is all. Secret shelter. Photographers, they stirred that like. It's the very first part they did. That he looks like about half of that group. Anything they did would be part of it. That's who. And then. Only the spring rain came with all that protection on. And then they started about that. You should have over. I don't know how much of it. Why you put it on the small? I wonder what the hell they were doing that. Again, it's in speed. That's well, the other problem. Soil, certain growth. Yeah, it's that period. But when it starts getting. These things all bring expansion. And I was on 2 years. But it's good. They threw everything on that. No, well, anyway, that's the one. Get ready. We can see that he wrote the also there. And give him phone. Get that 16, 15, 18, 40. What's happening? Is right. The neighbors didn't. It's 17, it's such control, I told you guys, so it's different. No cost, we're not big difference. Never did anything, my neighbor. He did his living, it's going on my back. And it's so bad. It's so busy.
Busier than I want to be. It's a nice break up here. I mean, I got a good job, but it's pretty busy.
Nice to meet you. This is the one where it's all in the like something. Back in the street.
Well, I think that's on the agenda too. We're trying to get on anytime that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably.
You can only do something. That's the engineer's certificate. Yeah. I can work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. There's only so much.
He just got his last night. Yes.
I don't remember when the day was. We had passed. That's all. That's everybody.
Right.
All the vendors.
Yeah.
Was it $25 a day?
Just because it was tired of looking at the league. That's what.
Yeah.
We, over the weekend, we were down by the city of the trailer and come home, I couldn't tell. I'm very into the state or get to see driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so variable, but that's. It's funny because I remember all the key, you're getting this, and it's. I side dressed my corn, about like 6 all week to do it, because one of the days I couldn't get going until I was fully green.
Yeah.
And when you're in those, they know it's gonna. Feel like.
They go to the slides.
July, I guess, in August. August,
We found that out last year.
yeah.
8 inches after the ball.
That was all the stuff that we came up to be good. You don't get it for today. No, I put well according to that. Get your daughter. Finished yesterday.
Bring back memories of old home down.
That's nice.
What's that?
Right now. That's $6. She is like
Way
way earning more, it's getting, can't wait to take off, get halfway there. We come back, I went back, that's what's out there, $100 off.
You can't trust the wind. It's some sites. Yeah, I got, some just got, 6 months after the fact, and they're stuck in somebody's, mailbag. They definitely. Okay. That's why. Well, everyone I saw, we might be getting. That's, I can't, all my bills. You can't trust the matter. What they do that we get from somebody. And they just couldn't see that. It's on the list.
They're saying the paper didn't do that. I've been flying blind.
Really? Yeah. Sometimes that's fun, sometimes it's not.
Maybe this much I table. I don't know if this is actually like.
Show you.
Let's go down.
Oh, we do.
Okay. I'm not surprised.
I know, I'm not either.
I was wondering if anybody was going to. I we got one. I just couldn't believe it. We wouldn't do that.
We got it.
Yeah. Yeah, not that I thought we needed it, but. It's one of my first questions.
Tyler, I brought paper copies of Jeff Dyer's request that this morning.
Yes,
Gave them to Marge, that she sent them to.
she has sent them to me and I made copies of that. She had just sent me an email that I think Rich filed another claim.
We have, do you have all these printed out or not? So these are images are in the completion report, but then if anyone does not agree with their figures, they can turn in a claim to change that. And then anything else could be turned.
These are all of the claims up to Dieterings that I received this morning from March.
Okay, these would be your.
I wanted to make sure that you send the check to him. I just wanted to make sure.
These are your copies.
Yeah, right.
Ed told me 4 times now.
Did you let him know I don't have any authority over that?
No.
And the,
Get out your checkbook.
the auditor's office can't even really do that. We could get into all of that.
Oh, really?
Too late now. Okay.
Is it 10 o'clock? See what Marge is doing?
I can run out and get you.
I'm
Cut
gonna,
down paper.
I'm gonna try and print out some of this stuff here.
2 weeks ago, months ago.
We got drainage repair requests.
Oh,
first.
we're gonna do.
We can do that later. We can-
We're gonna do that later.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. And yeah, when.
It is 10 o'clock. And we will hold our completion hearing for DD4 FEMA repairs. I would entertain a motion to open the hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
No second.
Second by Josh. Any discussion? Hearing none, do a roll call vote, please.
Plath,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Wactor,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Jerks.
Yes. Motion is open. We will turn it over to Tyler to do the presentation.
Do you have
Yes.
anything on the screen, Tyler?
Yeah. Just for some purposes a little later on.
That's fine.
Potentially, but.
Yep.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes.
Wait for it.
Good morning, all. I'm Tyler Conley, professional engineer with Bolton Mink here in town. Was tasked with the supervision of the construction project, the Drainage District number 4 FEMA main open ditch repair project. What I have tentatively filed with the board as the trustees is the certification of contract completion that satisfies section 468.101 of the Iowa Code for the closeout of a drainage district project. This is a little different than the typical completion certifications of contract completion, as there is a recognition that there were going to be claims potentially held from the contractor's retainage. So that makes provisions that the contract, the work was completed to substantial completion, notwithstanding the areas for those claims for additional damages. There was also a completion report filed with that certification that outlines the bids that were received, when the work started, the completion date of the work, and any change orders that were associated with the project. There were 3 change orders on the project. 2 were for time extensions that equated to no changes in contract dollars, and then a rectification at the end of the project for $58,563, which was to get actual quantities to meet the contract quantities. The majority of that was additional rock on the upper end of the facility that was used. There was a total completed work of $1,381,250.50, of which all but the 10% retainage has been paid. Again, we don't know exactly what the amount due to the contractor will be at the close of today's, or the close of the completion. It doesn't necessarily have to be today, the close of the completion hearing, as there were brought to my attention claims of additional damages caused by the lack of contractor completion in their work. Attached to the completion report is a tabulation of crop damages, as well as maps that outline those areas that we measured and the related crops thereof. Any claims or objections, requests for changes to that completion report will need to be filed in writing before the close of this completion hearing. I do have what claims for damages have been submitted to the auditor's office, and March has sent those to me. I have them here. With that, we can start going through some claims, unless there are
initial questions, from either the board as trustees or from the landowners in attendance.
I did not receive any summons of any of this proceedings today. So I'm not privy to any of this.
Okay, the notices for completion are, they are published. The code states that they should be published in the paper and sent to landowners, essentially the parcels that had work performed on them. Doesn't go to the whole district. It's just those that, but it doesn't go to the whole district directly. It is published, but it's essentially just the lands that are on the tabulation in the completion report that get a mailed notice.
Yeah, the whole district gets charged for work they did, right?
That's correct. But
Somebody in the district not along there, problem. They've been notifying, basically shut them down.
this is, we're following what the code outlines as the procedure.
Don't solve the problem.
Bill, do you have a notification from the?
No, I know, these are my objections.
That is, when it says to all landowners of Green Fork. Yeah, in the past, I think the board used to send it out to everyone. I don't know why they've taken this decision to do this.
That's so they don't confirm it. That's why.
The completion hearing, can be continued. Additional notice will be mailed. That is something that can, if it's going to be contentious, that is something that could be done. It's not something that the code requires, but it is something that could be done.
I think with the size of Drain 4 being one of the largest cities in the county, you can see that people are well informed.
I fear is here, there's going to be money spread over the whole drainage district, not just the FEMA repairs project. When we're done.
With what's left of what FEMA and the state doesn't cover is going to be a full district expense.
Right.
So if the board, as the trustees feels that it's appropriate to notify the whole district, there's nothing that keeps them from doing that. It's just, there's nothing that requires it either.
Can you speak?
Not off the top of my head,
I'm just saying.
no, I know it's in the code.
Right,
I don't.
Tyler, you don't have to go look. I think we're gonna have a continuation of this hearing and we're gonna notify everybody in the drainage district with a letter. Because they will get an assessment. I think it's only fair.
First hearing.
So why are we following different procedure than we do for every other district?
We're not, because there's going to be money that is going to be spread on every landowner.
That happens with every project.
Then we should notify every landowner.
Then we should do that for every project.
We have generally.
So why did we not on this one?
I do not know.
I don't believe that's been standard procedure.
There's also work here that has to be done and completed that's not gonna get paid for by FEMA. That is not normal operating procedure that we've done.
Then why didn't we handle that differently when we scheduled the hearing, I guess? Because we knew that at that point in time.
I was under the assumption everybody in DD4 was going to get a letter.
What's that much?
I just sent it to the landowners that had possible damages for the open ditch, which is what I've done.
That's been standard for every completion hearing, right?
Yeah, but there's work here that's not done yet, so we're gonna have to complete, so do we want? It's up to the board to make a decision on how we wanna handle this.
They continue to send out notices to everybody in the district.
I don't see why we would handle it differently than every other one, I guess. There's people here that didn't receive notice that still showed up, so.
Yeah, because they got a test message yesterday at noon.
It still affects them. It's my
I'm not saying it doesn't, but
whether you like it or not, they're on the assessment schedule. They will have a bill sent to them for what FEMA doesn't pay and for what FEMA didn't do in the project.
it's not what FEMA doesn't do in this project. There's stuff that could not be included because of
Basically,
lack
what
of
FEMA didn't
maintenance, I guess you could say.
Well, it wasn't lack of maintenance, it's because you changed the slope of the bank, so the pipes were no longer functioning as they were originally intended to do.
I don't know if I would say it quite that way. They were still functioning, but
No, they weren't, they're both off and laying down the bottom. I counted 60. But I don't know what, Tyler, you probably got a better count than I got.
Yeah, the entirety of the ditch was thrown, ported, went through, watched the entirety of it. From my count, ones that would either that should likely be addressed, be shortened, or tiles that are broken, bent in some way. I had around 50. So that was from the drone video, and that was after everything had been.
I threw in the 3 tile outlets in that number too.
What's that?
There's 3 tile outlets that have to be addressed.
Hey, you're right, and that mine included settlement that had occurred over top of surface drains, washouts, areas that the pipes were, soil was being lost on top of them. So that I have a log of all of those
Did
that I
you,
went through, and times and stations from the video and from the district, and I have all of those here for addressing, and I can speak to that a little bit. There's on a FEMA repair project like this, the money that gets allocated for it can only be used to repair items that were damaged as a result of the event. Which means that any pipes, surface drains, district tiles, anything like that, that we wish to repair takes documentation beforehand that it had been broken due to the event. And then we had to provide documentation afterwards of what that repair looked like. So anything that was existing that on a typical project would have been repaired because of its condition or any sort of changes in length because of the change to the side slopes, any of that work couldn't have been performed as part of this project because it wasn't eligible for the funds that the federal government and the state were obligated. I don't argue at all that it's work that needs to be done and needs to be addressed and corrected. There's a number of reasons for a number of, I mean, there's a half a dozen different issues with different pipes along the ditch. And all of that needs addressed in one way or another, but it's not. From my observations of it, it's not. It's based on the circumstances and not based on the lack of or poor performance by any specific individual.
Well, and to sum it up simply, it's that they may have been functioning fine. You did the change in the ditch and that changes, so that's the function that they did. Well, no one's responsible other than the contractor for failure to have it installed properly or the engineer for having it designed properly. It was fine before we did the project. Well, it's not fine now after the project. Who's responsible for it? That just.
Well, it's because of the confines of how the project was from FEMA's guidelines, what we were required to do in the change of the side slopes. So that's why I say it's kind of a victim of circumstance that project was held to a certain constraint. Those pipes beforehand and now after, when whatever's done to put them back into regulation, that ended up being in conflict with one another. Not everywhere, in some 20-some spots along the 13 miles that would need to be addressed. But to pin the actual blame on anyone, I think is unwarranted and not fair.
Someone's responsible. Right? That's fine. That's the answer.
I mean, in some instances, on projects like this, I don't think anyone is responsible.
Except the people have to pay for it.
Well, the districts. It's unfortunate and I'm empathetic to the situation that's come up because of this. But there was something was going to have to give. It's either the project is done at the 85% obligation, it gets the facility back into what federal government and the state consider as being eligible for FEMA damages again in the future. That's done and we deal with the pipes afterwards, or the pipes are left as they are and you don't get any of the other situation. So that's a very long-winded way of saying it is what it is. We don't plan on leaving it that way. That's why the drone video and that's why this exists.
So Tyler, for today, I think we can go ahead with all the claims.
You would like to do the ones
Right.
we have now?
I
Instead of-
guess if we are going to continue this and renotice everyone, I feel that should all be handled at the same time. I don't think we should go over everything
I'm
twice,
a
if that's the
little
case.
to agree with Kyle, just so it's done all at one time. So
I'm fine with that.
So we're not mixing and matching, and if somebody has something else, if we do a landowner's claims and they come back with a different idea, then we're jumping back. If we were going to.
Do you believe the repairs with those pipes are going to be over the threshold requiring a separate public hearing? Because that would be.
No.
Okay.
It may be close, but with the 50 I have here, to get to a public hearing, it would require $1,000 per location. to require to get to the $50,000 threshold for a hearing. I don't think you're going to be
I don't do that.
anywhere close to $1,000 per location.
So if we did another continuance, it would be, everybody would be notified and everybody would know about it, I guess is my point.
If that's the motion that is made, and that would be for what day it's continued to. I don't know what it would, that would be a question for your auditor and drainage clerk on how long it would take to produce and get notice out.
It would need to be out 10 days before, so we're looking at least 2 weeks.
Right.
Tyler,
Yes.
$58,563 for more riprap fee, right?
Yes, but essentially, there was fractions in pipe quantities. Some of the pipe quantities went down, some pipe quantities went up. The bulk of it's wrong.
Well, I was told a year ago when I was up there, FEMA don't like riprap. That's why they changed the slope so it's through. So why was extra riprap when FEMA didn't like riprap?
Extra riprap was based off of sand seams and unstable soils that were found in the upper reaches of the district. As we were, there were places that held a lot better, places where the toe was a lot more stable. It held. As we were excavating up in the upper sections, that wasn't the case. They were already starting to slough and give. So instead of excavate side slopes that were looking to fall in and then go back in and re-excavate them, the decision was made to drop.
Like I said, a year ago, I was told FEMA don't like riprap.
And traditionally, they don't. What my understanding is that they like even less is going back in and redoing.
It is site for district fight.
One, I know for sure. It's one of the laterals of Turner's report. Off the top of my head, okay.
Just as I'm printing some copies here. Tyler.
General consensus of the board while he's printing copies.
Well, I'm printing out the code section 468-101 completion of work, and I think it'd be good for all of us to have that in front of us here in a second.
Question, what, planning on replacing a lot of these pipes again?
I don't know if full replacement in a lot of the instances is really gonna be necessary. Some of them are cantilevered out quite a ways, they're unsupported. You run the risk of them breaking and causing more issues to the bank.
Been out the existing.
Right.
All the way through the project.
Right.
And you were told that last fall, before you were in the first hearing, or their remark was in here saying, you said, why do you stick them in the dredge so far? Because they're gonna break up. In the spring, when the water and the ice comes down, everything that's sticking out very far is gonna be advantage of broke off.
That's not my point.
There's a lot of pressure coming through there.
Right.
And I guess my question is what are you gonna do different? You gonna put them in again, so next spring they're all, several of them are damaged again?
No.
Is there something figured out to keep them short and fix it right?
Right, one of the. There's, again, like everything, there's a lot to these. The ones that I found in the drone video that are the longest are the private tiles that come into the ditch side slopes the highest. And what they're why they're so long is because they're dumping down into the actual low flow channel that's there. There was an attempt to keep them from pouring onto the side slopes because that undermines and washes away your side slope. So there's a balance to strike between the height they come in at, the length that they are, where they output. There's a dance to that. A lot of the existing pipes that are now too long, it's a matter of the side slope changes. I think those can be cut, have their ends treated, so they don't rust any faster. If we need to place some sort of anti-scour, something on the banks, just to shorten those up, so they're not cantilevered so far. The ones that we could maybe bring in a little lower in the ditch, I'm not necessarily opposed to either. The thing about why some of them come in so high is because then you've got a lot of room in your ditch before you've got a forced outlet. So there's a lot at play on these, and the solution for one probably isn't going to be the solution for all of them.
6 years ago, when this project was done, these outlets were all put in, and when everything was said and done, then the engineer came back and said they had to take them in at more of a slope. So they were all redone then. And I'm guessing they might have used the same pipe. Yeah, it's like most of this pipe's only 6 years old.
Right, which is why I don't want to see
They're
them.
all there in West Clay City. They look pretty damn good shape to me. I don't know why they weren't used. And now we're coming back with new pipe again. How many times do we have to pay for this?
And it was just new pipe to replace what was broken. We didn't replace and.
It was broken, just my observation is these pipe aren't the quality pipe they used to be, just like everything else in the world. But where they broke off, this rivets pulled out, the two pieces are riveted together, it's rivets are just pulled out, and hanging there, the two of them within one where I live, it's hard that I can see it from the bridge.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen them not only in the drone video, but on
Broke
the,
off, it's probably the length they need to be, the way they look to me.
and that's,
Whether a person should put some rock underneath them, a hog slack or something to keep it from washing, or whether the washing is gonna make any difference. So there were old ones in there that were shorter, and it was washed out a little bit around the area. It was grass and, yeah, there's a little washout there. It's not perfect. These dredges are not gonna stay perfect. You know, it's just.
no, I agree, they aren't gonna stay.
And it was fine. It's been that way for 30 years.
The,
When I remember them. You know, before it was cleaned out and after, kind of the same situation.
the point is to try to prolong the health of the system as long as we can. You're right, it's going to fail. This is not the last thing that's ever gonna have to happen to this drainage ditch. I can all but assure it. And there's attempts to extend that longevity. And yes, there are instances where changes are going to need to be made, concessions are going to need to be made. But it's all done in the effort of prolonging the district's health.
Okay, so for the discussion on whether we continue this hearing or not. 468-101 specifically lays out who is to be noticed, and that says about the middle of that paragraph. It says by ordinary mail to the owners of land on which the work was done. And to owners of each tract of land or lot within the district by publication in a newspaper. So both those criteria were met. If the extra work to be done is anticipated to be less than the requirement for notice, I don't see a need for a whole separate hearing, whole republication. I believe the requirements have been met and we should move forward with the conversation today.
Josh? Got an opinion?
Well, I agree that, I mean, the requirements are met for, the per code. I don't see a problem with continuing.
Art?
I mean, legal requirements are met, just a matter of. Any further notice would just be a nice gesture from the board, really. I mean, and improving communication, that's, otherwise, all the legal requirements are met, so I'm fine with either way.
I think if we do that, I'm not opposed to it, but it should be consistent. It shouldn't just be one thing here or there. If we're going to do that, it should be consistent and it should have been for everything in the future. As
This
well
is
as
the
the
first,
past.
this is the first FEMA project that we had that's this big. And normally projects are not paid for by FEMA, so.
Right.
True, but for Act 1 and stuff with the completion hearing there, that was a similar sized project without any FEMA funds. And
There's a
that-
big difference.
yeah, but it was the same notice requirement in the code that we followed. It was not noticing the whole district.
I'm not arguing that point with you. I just said it affected more people than what letters got sent. Jack, what's your opinion?
I think just some good faith and we got enough complaints. I think we should do a continuation and, send those out to everybody.
So we're kind of split, aren't we, Tyler?
Well, I'm certainly not gonna be the tiebreaker. For the sake of transparency, I mean, I'll go through everything I have here today. Or we table it, we continue, I come back, we go over this and anything else that we receive. For transparency's sake and a show of good will and gesture towards the district and to avoid any accusations of trying to dodge it, I don't think that it's a bad idea. It would have to come with the understanding that the renotice and the republication that's district expenses that are.
It will be.
That are paid. But essentially, if the trustees are fine with that, I don't see an issue with doing it. You're well within your rights to continue a hearing.
You are pretty confident you can come in under 50,000 on the repairs for the pipes.
Yes, I'm 80% confident on.
With the tile outlets and.
Yes, that's, between the tile outlets and there's one large washout I know of at least. That will need to be addressed. I'm confident that won't require another.
And you've added up all the damages?
I have not added up all of the damages. I felt that was a conversation best to go through. And determine what falls into what category.
That was my next question. What is going to be withheld from the contractor's final payment? What is it? Do you have that done yet?
Ultimately, that's a trustee's.
Yep.
Decision. I have an opinion on various claims that as we go through, I'd like to share what my opinion on those are. What is, claims for additional crop damages just caused by the project that would fall as district expenses versus additional work that was done to complete the plan specifications that I'm not gonna argue, I feel should be held from the retainage amounts, but those, it's all on an individual basis, and I haven't gone to the extent of adding all of those up, because I don't want my opinion to influence what the decisions are made before the discussion is had on.
having everything said and everybody's opinion, I think we probably should continue with the hearing so that we don't add extra expense by having letters sent out and having holding another meeting. I don't know that we'd benefit anything. As long as you're fairly confident that we can keep the repairs under 50,000.
I am
Does
reasonable.
anybody on the board have a problem with
Aye.
continuing the hearing? Anybody in the audience have a problem with continuing the hearing? Thank you. Go ahead. We will.
I do have another question.
That's a date.
We're not continuing, we're
not continuing
we're continuing the conversation today.
today. We're gonna finish this out instead of add extra expense.
We will not be having another public hearing.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, I was.
I was a little.
Now.
Okay.
Can use
Today.
proceeding.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Terminal.
Different action.
Yep.
Maybe repose the question to the room.
Does anybody have a problem with that that's in the room?
Questions, go ahead.
Yes, I've just got an opinion, I guess, on this replacing these culverts again. I don't feel I should have to pay for this.
Which we're
Should have
gonna,
done right. Who made the mistake? Why are they all bad?
let's get on with that in the hearing and not now. Let's let him finish some of the, and then we'll get to the culverts when we look at the drone footage.
All right. Seating, I have. And this is, okay, so this, okay, good, this is additional for Rich, all right. And do the board members have copies of?
I put them in your folder.
Okay, they're in their folder, so we can go through these. I have the additional claims broken out by individual landowner. And not that I would, if you have copies of them, I don't know if landowners would be comfortable with me just projecting.
We have
on a
copies in our,
case-by-case basis, but,
we have them all in our folder.
okay, I can maybe then discuss them without projecting everybody's finances just up on the screens there. So the first are claims filed by Rich Arndorfer. I'll read the first one here. I'm writing this letter to request reimbursement for the tillable area lost on my farms by widening the drainage ditch DD4. Holden Mink stated that the width of ground lost that I lost was 5 to 7 feet. For this request, I'm using the average of 6 feet. The length of my farm per Bolton Mink are 2,650 feet in Harrison Township and 2,750 feet in Greenwood Township. There are then calculations for value of land. He has as 15,000 per acre. For the Harrison Township, that comes out, the calculation per area is 0.36 acres for a value of $5,400. And in Greenwood Township, it was 3.79 acres for a value of $5,685. My apologies. Speaking to that, the completion hearing is, and as it's laid out in the code, the claims for additional damages are those that do not include claims for additional right of way. There is procedures for right of way. There are separate reports that require appraisers. So as far as this claim, while I'm not speaking to its validity, I'm speaking to the appropriateness of the time to cover it, which in my opinion would not be today at this hearing. This could be brought to the board at a later date for consideration.
in agreement.
Agreement? All right. Moving to the next claim from Rich, there was a claim on the completion document, had the completion report had his crop type as buffer. He has requested that to be changed to corn. That I do not see an issue with. When we go out and measure damages, it can be tough over the whole swath to tell exactly what was and wasn't. So as far as a claim for corn in those areas, I do not have an issue with that.
I would
I just,
support.
We don't know, so
Good.
yeah.
And that'd be if Rich would like to speak to it at all, but that,
You,
I would be in favor of that.
Rich, you don't have any buffer along the ditch, do you?
No.
I-
It's could have been called.
Yeah. Yeah. I would support that.
When somebody was
Yep.
looking at it in the area. Because there's nothing planned, we didn't plan.
Okay, that's, that would have.
You gonna write that in? Tyler's gonna compile.
Next from Rich is a itemized list of cleanout damages for Greenwood 11 and Harrison 6. They're dated from the June 2nd of this year. Releveling. Field cultivation. And some essentially cleanup of rock. You want to speak more to the items on here, else I'll go through what the amounts are at the end.
In the end, last fall, the day or two before the weather was gonna change, but it was obvious they were going to fall and finish it later. We went out with our box scraper and leveled some of the homes. And some of the issues just to get in better shape and use the box scraper to pile some rocks. Just so it was done, and they did come back and they did a good job cleaning up rocks that were on top of the ground. But this spring, went out and field cultivated it, and field cultivated it deep to soften things up, because it hadn't been killed last fall. Other than we did try to put some anhydrous on one as we went around on part of it, just because. But anyhow, we tried to field cultivate deep, and then of course you get into the rocks, and then you got damage on the field cultivator because of the rocks that were not picked up. They were put in and run in with a cat and it was running over it. You know, so, but that's what it was. I've got one in there for this spring when we requested to haul dirt off at home. And I brought an estimate of the cost, what it was to level the thing enough. So contractor felt he could drive his trucks on the dredge. It was that rough because they really finished it off so much. Finished last summer. In the meantime, that the guy running the cat didn't, know what he's doing. And that's why it was rough as it was, but he had to level it before he could start hauling dirt off from the east end. We hauled the dirt from the east end because that's where it was piled deeper, dug out more because of the hill. That's the reason why it needed to be done, so we did all that. But otherwise, it was just trying to get it in shape. It was supposed to done by the contractor the fall before. With a deep ripper or something.
My thoughts and comments on these sections and, had seen Rich's ground in a couple different states of repair. Speaking in defense of the contractor and the work that they performed is that, rocks always seem to be an issue on these ditch projects, especially on the longer ones. They're, you pull up an awful lot of rocks on these. The contractors are limited to working the ground, 2 passes, picking up what they work up in that process. And the contract, the specifications aren't for the contractor. They're not tasked with working it back to an actual seed bed, a perfect seed bed. And as we know, there were a lot of rocks up here, and the more that it's worked, the more rocks will just continue to come up. They're not, we didn't get all of them. Even now, I'm sure we didn't get all of them. There were certainly times when this was, I have seen it, and the work that had been performed, I was satisfied with. So as far as the entirety of the rock picking being a contractor's expense, I don't agree with. I do agree that there were leveling issues. There were spots out there that even Kyle and I saw a day when Rich was out picking up rocks, that the leveling wasn't done the specifications. So as far as the
In certain areas.
in certain areas, not for the whole length of it, but in areas. So for the expense of leveling that's been submitted, the bill from Reitzel's in the amount of $990. I am in support of that and of that being held from retainage. And then a portion of the rocks that would have been associated with that additional leveling.
At what point was a contractor not held liable for doing deep tillage like the original contract specified that he didn't do?
What was being judged was their final product. And based off of what the contractor was to level the spoils to with depth requirements, getting the spoil thin enough, it was then their responsibility to work up the rocks in that spoil. Contractor's responsibility isn't to get anything that's under that, it's to work the rocks up and out of the spoil as it came out of the ditch. So as they were performing that acceptably with the equipment that they had, that was the justification for allowing them to continue.
Didn't the contract specify that they were going to use deep tillage?
The specifications do state deep tillage.
Did they do it?
They were working the ground and pulling rocks. If it were anything over than 6 inches, I would say no, they did not.
So does the board, are we satisfied then that they completed the project as they bid it?
My opinion on it is based off of the finished products that I was seeing, that the project was completed to plans and specifications.
I would disagree with you on the fact that they didn't do any detailage to bring any rocks to the surface that were there, that they could have. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right.
Based on the amount of rock that I had seen worked up and picked up.
Yep.
Is the reason that I would disagree with your assessment.
Okay.
The amount of rock that was still left. I agree, if they had gone just a bit deeper, we'd have found all those too. But it isn't their responsibility to get anything from before the contract began.
I guess my comment is, if they're only going 6 inches, we've got spots that are 14 to 16 inches deep spoil. So they're not getting the rocks out of the spoil that was destined in the contract. And so, and I agree, I don't think they gotta pull up what was there 3 foot down.
No.
Or 2 foot down, but if the spoil's 14 inches, they better be ripping 14 inches. And I agree, they're not gonna get at one, but if they're only going 6 inches deep in a 12-inch spoil, you're missing 6 inches up.
I think this is a different project. We've never had a dredge bank or a dredge ditch put on a 2-to-1 slope before and went this far and had this much spoil.
It is an unusually large amount of spoil.
Right. So I don't know the right answer either.
I don't particularly either. One of the reasons that there is spoil in areas that's thicker than others was, and we were contesting with this last fall with the amount of spoil leveling that was done. To get that truly pushed as far out as it would have required, we would have damaged a considerable amount more crop and spread spoil material over a fair amount more crop ground, which some people are in favor of, a lot of people aren't. It is a tricky situation for the amount of spoil, managing that much spoil, and getting it appropriately clean. One that I don't know as I have the best answer for either.
Classifies detail. Ripper, a disc, or filter later. There's 3 options. I don't know if you're a farm lawyer.
Something like a bead ripper is what I would.
Brian just said to use the disc and filter later. I think detail.
And it's brought to my attention. About
Disco, they do that over the rocks. They don't bring them up.
about a quarter into the project, that's what they were using. And then we watched what the rock quantities were looking like.